2020 has been so bad that everyone is just eagerly waiting for it to end and expecting 2021 to be the savior. Every worst possible scenario has happened this year, starting from the climate change disaster that killed over 500 million animals in Australia and the pandemic that shut down the world on the electronic that was chaotic. So say the least, but not everything was as bad as it might seem. Despite the stock market crashed at the beginning of the year, the market had one of the best year. Some companies just crashed it and grew faster than they did in the entire decade prior to that. It's not the end of the year, and Amazon's stock price has almost doubled. Elon Musk went from the $20 billion at the beginning of the year to $100 billion. In fact, we made an entire video about the list of the people who became billionaires as a result of this pandemic. Whoever took advantage out of this year had of them. But what we want to find out in this video is how the stocks market will perform the next year, which stocks will most probably rise and which one will fall, and finally, will there be any significant crash. This video is brought by Trends. In the middle of the global pandemic, how do you find entrepreneurs, investors, and ambitious people like you? That's what Trend is for. The place where the entrepreneurs go to the network, find great ideas, and like-minded people to jumpstart their ideas. Stay around until the end of the learn more, and you can get your first 7 days to just $1 for your $1 7-day trio. How the economic machine works. To understand how the economic is going to perform next year, we have to find out how the economic usually performs after the crisis. You probably have heard that whatever rise will definitely fall. And in this case, with the economy has four main stages, and it started with the explanations. It peaks somewhere at the top and plumbs, which is also known as the contractions. At once it reaches the lowest point, it rises again. During the expansions period, the economy is booming. The stock market is rising, and it seems like the growth will be forever. Investors raise the lows, and businesses are borrowing and expanding as fast as they can. Investors are throwing their money at the stock market, and everyone is happy. Unfortunately, it doesn't last forever. At some point peak, the central bank is going to say, inflation is growing too fast, let's slow it down. So Fed will increase interest rates to keep inflation under control. The economy has reached its full potential, it's stabilized and grows just enough to cope with inflations. But investors are used to extraordinary returns. For instance, iPhone sales have been increasing since 2009. However, in 2015 they slowed down and stabilized since the economy wasn't growing fast enough. That's scared of investors, and some of them slowly start pulling out their money. Business will do their best to maximize their sales to keep investors interested. However, at some point the supply will outweigh the demand. So business slow down, that pushes away investors, which slows down further the market. But business have somehow to survive, so they will start cutting costs. First, by the firing the least important employers, so unemployment starts rising, which means the demand starts falling in the market overall. Businesses can't even take the loan since the interest rates are too high, since the Fed increased them because inflation was too high. That's how the economy slides into the recessions. People start to save since they are afraid to uncertain about the future, which means the demand in the market falls even further, which means more businesses suffer, which means more unemployment. It's never-ending cycles that will keep dragging the economy down. Usually, the Fed intervenes by the lowering interest rates to make borrowing money fee to the same the economy from the recessions. But it doesn't always work instantly, and the economy keeps declining. At some point, the economy is going to reach its boss line. depressions. People are afraid to borrowing because the economy looks so bad that they don't seem to be able to pay it back. In that case, the central bank will do what the Fed did this year, quantificate easing. That's just the fancy word for the printing money. Businesses will take that money and hire people. Investors would see that the economy is slowly recovering and will start investing. The economy will return to the expansion stage, and the same cycle will repeat over and over. If we can find out where exactly we are in these gaps, we can at least have some idea of where the economy is headed to. Back in 2015, the Fed started increasing interest rates because the economy reached its peak. But then in 2018, the Fed lowered the interest rates because the economy was sliding into the recessions. Even the global GDP growth slowed down by year. In 2017, it was 3.1%, but in 2019, even before the pandemic, it fell to 2.4%, the lowest growth of the decades, and that didn't happen by accident. We had Brexit, the trade war, and many other issues that slowed the economy. But the final knockout was the pandemic because it literally shut down businesses, prevented consumers from the spending, and left millions unemployed. The economy immediately fell into the recessions. It wasn't clear how long the recession is going to last since the future seemed very unpredictable. But certain banks stepped in the lower interest rates to make borrowing money free, printing trillions of the dollars and to make sure to put the money into the people's hands onto their spendings does not fall and get the economy out of these recessions as soon as possible. But most importantly, created and approved vaccine by the end of the year to bring back to normal. The economy is still in the recessions and the GDP is going to shrink by the 3.4% this year. However, the economy seems to be moving from the recessions back into the expansions period within the next year once vaccinations will be wide available. Whether you trust vaccines or not, that's the story for another time. But feel free to let me know your opinion in the comments below. That's why most environment economics predicts the 3.4% GDP growth next year, which is very reasonable. The stocks market doesn't usually follow the economy. However, when the economy is at the expansion period, the stocks market trades to do pretty well. But because when the economy is growing, investors feel more confident to invest, especially since we are going to have the dividend divided government, where Democrats control the House and the executive branch and Republicans control the Senate. Since 1929, S&P 500 on average grew bigger under the divided governments that when the single party control all branches of the government. So many analysts predict that the market will rise by the 10 to 20%. It also should be a great year for the Tesla. The Biden administration has right concern about the climate change and will likely push the government to invest into the renewable energy and get back to the Paris Agreement. And as the industry grows, Tesla will grow as well. And since it has been added to the S&P 500 recently, next year will probably be one of the best year for Tesla. But so does for other companies who are in this sector and other sectors that will grow in the pharmaceutical industry. Despite it being a boring industry, 2020 made everyone much more conscious about their health, and governments around the world learned the harsh way to invest in the healthcare is much if we wanted to be ready for another pandemic. So investments in the pharmaceutical companies won't stop next year. Companies like the Moderna and the Pfizer will most likely keep growing. And finally, the biggest gigantic of the next year are probably going to be the big tech. First of all, Amazon, because it will play a key role in distributing the vaccine across the world since it has one of the biggest distribution channels on the planet. Of course, the big tech are facing antitrust issue, but the chances that they will be broken are too low. Go to watch business casuals video on why the big tech won't be broken. There are, of course, speculations, however, they are based on the factors and circumstances on the ground. Things can definitely take another way, but so far, this is how they look. One way people made fortunes is by investing early in the tech giants when they were just small startups. You can't, of course, check out that every startup is doing, but this article by Tens analyze hundreds of the startups to find out which industry is rising and which particular startups are getting most of the funding and have the highest chances to become the next $1 trillion company. Dance is filled with exclusive, valuable content, but it's also the place where entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, analysts, scientists come together to network, collaborate, and host live QA. If you have an entrepreneur or aspire to be one, what could be more valuable than having assets to the CEOs who build the companies from nothing and are ready to answer your questions? And by this signing up to Trends, you literally get access to the community of the industry leaders in the virtually every field, where you can learn to turn your idea into the real business or to be the first to find out the next big thing. Right now, you can get your first 7 days for just $1. So, good luck.